Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your hostess with the mostest. It's Pastor Keenan, back with another episode of People Suck, Love 'Em Anyways. And as always, I'm joined by my sidekick, Nick. Nick, how you doing tonight, my man?
Oh, pretty good. It's nice and crispy outside, you know. So
it is nice
it's better
and crispy,
than being
man.
crispy and cold outside.
Well, this is true, man. It is hotter than a rotisserie hot dog right now, so I will give you credit for that. But anyways,
turning.
Absolutely. And but we're thankful for it. Like you said, it could be snowing. So I'm thankful for the heat, thankful for the sunshine, thankful for another day for sure. And thankful that we have a guest tonight. Hey, that's fantastic, right? The last couple of episodes that we've done, we've been kind of solo, just me and Nick. And I know y'all don't like to hear us talk all the time. You gotta break up the monotony just a little bit. So we do have a guest with us tonight. He is a stage presence. He is a spiritual warrior. For myself, he always tells me what I do good and what I do bad every Sunday, more bad than good most of the time. But anyways, we have our guitarist with us tonight, Mr. Hardin Warren. Hardin, how you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good for an old man.
Yeah, absolutely. So Hardin is just coming off of a full hip replacement not too long ago. So we had to drag him out of the house by gurney and everything else, and chopper him up here tonight and drop him through the ceiling and everything else.
You got me on here while I was still drugged up.
Yeah, absolutely. So the answers we give you tonight is not a reflection of who he really is. It is the drugs talking. But so tell us a little bit about yourself, Hardin. We always do this with every person we bring on, just kind of who you are, your background, all that good jazz.
It's hard to say. I've done so many things in my life, but primarily, I was throughout my young life. I went to church every Sunday. It was Southern Baptist. Dad led the singing in the choir, and sister played the piano most of the time. So I was raised in church continually. Yeah. And just fast forward, got married, and my wife's dad's a preacher. We sung music all over the southeastern region for quite some number of years. So I've been exposed to many different kinds of music, many different backgrounds as far as religious backgrounds.
Right.
Probably in every kind of church there was at one time or another doing the Southern gospel music thing.
Yeah.
So, which, like I said, now you fast forward again, I'm here.
I was going to say, now later, and if you put all the connections and dots together, so his wife, Miss Karen, she plays the piano for us, he's playing the guitar, and then their daughter, Tara, is our worship leader, and, so she's been on an episode with us as well, and they were kind of like the original crew. We go back and watch videos sometimes, and the stage was many moons ago, nothing but just white walls and a piano, and it was pretty sad to just go back and look at how empty the stage was about 5 years ago,
I'm like Martin Luther King. I had a dream.
You had a dream, exactly, and here we are. Here we are
and
5 years later.
To fruition.
There you go, man. So, the stage is full now. We got people all across the stage, and that's a great thing. So, great thing. And, again, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode and for hitting that download button and for supporting us. And Nick gave me the news yesterday, I guess, that we entered another country. So that totals up now 19 countries, I think? 18 countries. So we got 18 countries now, 30-some-odd states, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, all over the place.
All over the place, man. So we're driving towards completing our United States tour, and now, just working on some countries outside and doing some stuff. So thank you so much for the support. We do appreciate it so much. And Nick, man, go ahead and drop the bomb on us tonight as to what we're talking about and what we're getting into and what we're sharing our opinions on and all that good jazz. So hit us up.
Yeah, so, this going on in the United States right now, there's, a lot of horrible things, as we've talked about over the last few weeks. Again, I know we have some listeners, like I said, we had a couple people from Zambia in Africa.
Zambia.
I don't know if I pronounced that right. I hope I did. But
Zambia.
Maybe. Yeah, that sounds a little bit more right.
I think so. I watch the Discovery Channel, bro.
Right, yeah, every once in a while. But anyway, I know we do have a lot of international listeners. So, if you want any more, fuel to make fun of the United States of America, here you go.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a lot of crazy stuff, and if you've been paying attention to the news at all here in America, you've noticed that we are dealing with a debt issue, a big big debt issue going
debt
on.
Ceiling
right?
crisis.
Debt ceiling crisis. There
Yes.
you go. Get official, right?
Right.
So we're dealing with what is being called like a debt ceiling crisis right now, which is, the United States government is, I don't know if they want me to tell this to our international audience, but I'm telling them anyway. The United States of America is once again out of money, even though we were already out of money. We're just further out of money than
Right.
we've ever been further out of money.
There you go.
But anyway, so we're definitely out of money, to put it that way.
Have you before you
go
read
ahead.
that? Have you ever seen that clock, or not the clock, but like the money? Like, have you ever seen that where it's like the U.S. keeps on going in debt, like, and it's like the money just keeps rolling, like the numbers keep going, and it's insane to watch that. You can like actually search that up and look, and like it's like it just keeps rolling. It's almost like a time clock. It just keeps going and going. But go ahead.
I'm sure more money is lost every second in the United
Right,
States
yeah,
than anywhere else in
yeah,
the world. But
so.
So one of the headlines, this is actually a headline from a couple weeks ago, but a lot of people are still dealing with this, and we're still talking about it. But the headline that kind of caught my attention was from a CNN article. Don't worry, we also trash Fox News occasionally as well.
Yes.
But CNN says every family should be concerned about debt ceiling, and Consumer Watchdog is warning people about it. So someone who kind of keeps an eye on the economy, keeps an eye on everything that's going crazy. This one kind of caught my eye, again, because our roots here is a Christian podcast, and I think a lot of what we talk about is where we trust God, or I guess where we worry the most is where we trust God the least. And I think a lot of Christians, a lot of Americans, a lot of human beings in this world struggle with their finances,
Right.
worrying about where that next dollar is going to come from, how they're going to make that promotion, how they're going to make more money, how they're going to set themselves up with a nice little nest egg and leave a legacy, a financial legacy, and all that kind of stuff. I think money is something that every American is talking about right now, and it's definitely a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to kind of dive in tonight talking about some of the things that we've seen with this specific situation going on here in America, but also what the Bible says about how we should trust God with our finances, if we trust God with everything else. And so we got a lot of little different things to talk about. We got Hardin here to give his perspective on it.
Absolutely.
He said that we may have put a disclaimer on it. So we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
Yeah, but So who wants to jump in?
Well, I was going to say, are you going to read anything about it? Yeah, just read something about it.
I'll roll this article in here just because there was a. Just kind of, I know this is kind of a silly sounding thing, but it's the U.S. debt ceiling for dummies. So just in case somebody out there doesn't really know what this whole situation is and what it's about and all that kind of stuff. So, the debt ceiling is basically just at the point now where let me make sure. I want to make sure I'm quoting this correct here because it is. It can be a little bit confusing. So the debt ceiling is the limit placed by Congress on the amount of debt the government can accrue in order to pay its bills to those it borrowed from and dole out money for everything from Medicare benefits to military salaries. The government needs more money. The debt ceiling has to be raised, and they're looking at trying to reach a deal, from my understanding, sometime around June 1st here, because if not, the United States will go into default, which I don't believe has happened from all the little research I've been doing here. We do know that the debt ceiling has been raised, or at least we say we know, has been raised about 78 times since 1917.
Right.
So, we just keep pushing that envelope further and further out. We aren't paying stuff back. We're just constantly borrowing to borrow, I guess, if that makes any sense. So like I said, a lot of crazy stuff going on. We're struggling financially here in America with the amount of debt that we're taking on. Both on a national level and I even say on an individual level. I think, there's a lot of people, I don't have the exact stats, but I mean, the amount of debt that a normal human being here in America probably possesses is probably pretty crazy.
I would say so.
On an average.
So I was fixing to say it'd be interesting to have some statistics on the average household as to what they were in debt in 1958 versus what they are today.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I think we as a culture are more comfortable with taking on more. We need to spend more money, so we just need to borrow more.
Yeah. Right.
And I think it transfers to the government right on up the ladder.
Well, kind of like what you were saying earlier, Hardin, was how you were making the comparison with the family versus the government, and I think you were saying that, like, it's easier to go further in debt to support the lifestyle you live versus looking at your wife and your kids and saying, we're going to cut this, we're going to do this, you can't have this, we can't do this. Right. It's just a whole lot easier to just go ahead and borrow more just to support the lifestyle that you're living, right?
And I'm a little older than you guys, so I probably remember a few more politics, but throughout my life, I can remember politicians continually saying that we're going to buckle down on debt and we're going to tighten our belts and we're going to create I mean, and Trump was the one going to make America great again. But
Right.
before him, even there's been other politicians that's like, we're going to pay ourselves out of debt.
Yeah.
Well, it hadn't happened in my lifetime.
Right.
And because you said the key word, it is easier
Yeah.
to go deeper in debt and raise the debt limit, or as long as the bank will loan you money to go deeper in debt and you can make your interest payments, you can still have a pool in the backyard and a decent car to drive, versus saying, tell you what, we're going to get out of debt. In order to do that, you got to drive this 10-year-old junker we've been driving. The other second car's an 18-year-old junker.
Yeah.
And the kids are not going to go do volleyball and do all this because we can't afford it.
Right.
We're going to eat at home and not eat out.
Right. But
Dave Ramsey is in the building tonight.
yeah, right. How do we get out of that? We snowball it. That's what we do. But I think too, like, you know, if we've learned anything from individual and families and things like that, like just to exclude the government for a minute, like there's only so much that you can take on before you have to default. Like you can keep on raising limits, but
unless you produce your own money.
Right. Well, I said excluding the government, Hardin, is what I said.
Okay,
you know,
okay.
excluding the
I
government.
missed that part.
Hardin's talking about those people who got a printing press in their basement.
Yeah.
just pulling it out.
We are not running the numbers. You know, we're not doing the codes on this to see if it's legal or not. But yeah, I mean, excluding the government, like just individual family type status, there's only a certain limit that you can get to that you can support. You know,
But something stood out to me when Nick was reading the headlines. There is, you know, how was that? Every household should be concerned. Blah blah blah. The first thing that stood out to me in that, and it's media. I don't. Media's not bad. I'm not hammering them. I'm
It
just
is
saying.
bad. It's okay.
I am just saying that. And maybe I'm a pessimist when it comes to this, but Americans seem to feed off of drama.
surely not.
And this drama thing, that right there is one of those things. Let's get everybody scared.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at it right now. Let's say we're terrified of that. With three of us sitting right here, we're shivering in our boots. Well, what are we going to do about it? We done elected the politicians that's up there,
Right.
and they're going to do whatever they got to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it's actually not in our control at this point. What is in our control is to change the future when they're not operating under the standards that they need to operate.
Yeah.
Which entails a totally different subject matter. I read an article about how you change politics, and you got to change it from the county level, state level, up.
Right.
Not the other way around.
Right. So it doesn't start from up down; it goes from down up.
That is correct.
It goes from down up. I can understand that,
And we don't do that.
right, and I agree with that. I think, you know, like you said, I mean, it's not really in our control because at this point in time, you know, basically they're going to make a decision regardless. It's not like they're coming to our doorstep.
But we got to get everybody scared. We got to get everybody on board.
Right. Well, and I think too, and Nick, maybe you can chime in and do whatever, but I think too that like, you know, the government has to tax some. So basically, they have to get their money from somewhere, you know, and they're going to print more money and whatever the case is. They're going to raise this debt ceiling or whatever. But we are going to feel the effects of it somewhere down the line, whether that's through inflation, whether that's through taxes, whether that's through, you know, whatever the case is, the cost of living, whatever. We're going to feel the effects of that somewhere along the line. So should we, and Hardin can talk about this too, but should we, you know, he said, we should get everybody scared and get everybody tore up. But I mean, shouldn't that really affect you just a little bit though? To think about cost of living, to think about taxes, to think about inflation, to think about, because I mean, people are struggling right now with the way things are. You know, let's add another 3% onto that inflation rate and see where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely very, very easy. You know, what Hardin was kind of saying is that, you know, we or what I kind of caught was that, you know, we want that drama, but we want that lack of control is what scares us. I think that's real. Dropping everything. That lack of control is what scares us, and I think that's what, you know, we need to kind of look at is, are we in control of anything? You know, and when we're in that situation where it's like, you know, am I in control of, you know, not dying when I walk outside? You know, and then you have situations where tree branches are falling on people and killing them. Like, you know, they had no control over that situation. You know,
Tree branch about took Hardin out one time. Right, that's true statement.
But you know, I think we struggle with a lack of control. Like, we want to control everything. We want to control other people. We want to control our finances. We want to control when and where we die, how we die. We want to control, you know, all these sorts of different things throughout our life. And I think that inability to control it kind of freaks us out a little bit. Mm-hmm. But, you know, just kind of more specific. You know, number one, I know Hardin told us we need to add this disclaimer. We are not financial experts by any means whatsoever. You know, we just kind of saw this article, and I wanted to run with it just because this is something that's been on my heart a lot lately, is my fear, I guess, of not having enough money to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go.
Do, average American, you know, do we want to control it, or do we want to be able to blame someone else?
I think a lot of it kind of comes. I think it's weird because
I think
that
it's a
you
blame
say
game.
that. Well,
I think
that
it's a
you
blame
say that.
game.
I think a lot of us, we want to control things, but at the end of the day, we want to be told what to do.
Yeah,
I think,
My point exactly.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think at the end of the day, a lot of people, they're. Because, if we really, and this is, not to get, I'm not January 6ing it or anything, but if we really wanted to see things change, with the amount of people that say they want to see things change, if we actually got together to see things change, we could probably see things change.
Right.
But, we just want to sit there and we want to live our comfortable lives. We don't want to upset the status quo. We want people to tell us what to do, how to act, where to go. I mean, you see it in churches, you see it in businesses, you see it in all over the, society. We like being told what to do. We like to know what to expect. And, I think we have that fear of the unknown sometimes. What would happen if I did this? Yeah, I can sit here and complain all day, but, I don't really want to do anything to fix it. And I think there is, bits and pieces of both. I think scattered throughout society. I think we want to control things, but we don't have the motivation to try.
It's like Fruit Loops, man. It's just different colors in there.
Basically, we're lazy.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean, that's what it. It's like one of those
Look
things
at the
where
shopping cart theory back a long time ago.
Yeah, first episode. Go back and look, but it's I agree. We're lazy to the fact of that. It's like we know that it's coming. We could probably prepare for it a little bit, but instead we'd rather sit back and play the blame game. Let's blame such and such. Let's do this and this and
not,
so on and so forth.
I could have worked harder. Not I could have saved more. Not I could have done this or I could have done that. It's your fault for doing this. Your fault for doing that.
Right. Well, I think honestly, and let's talk about this. I think it's if you have one stream of income coming into the home and you have more than two people in your home, I feel like that unless that mainstream that's coming in is a X amount of money that's where, let's just say $100,000 or more, I feel like you're feeling the effects right now. You know what I'm saying? If you have one stream of income, let's say $50,000 a year, and you've got four people in the household, and you're trying to support four people in this economy off $50,000 a year, if you're not doing it, if you're not living life minimally, you know what I'm saying? If you've not made good past decisions, okay? You're in debt up to your eyeballs and things like that. I mean, I would feel like you're feeling the struggle of the economy right now. And not only that, as we venture into, we try to keep it Christian around here, we venture into, the church. And, if you're struggling to make payments on your car, on your house, on your light bill, putting gas in your tank and things like that, I mean, most people will let that play with their mind and let that play with their faith and let that play with their heart on about, tithing back to the church and giving back to God and things like that, right? I mean, what do you think, Hardin?
Well, I was fixing to bring up the point that ultimately, no matter who's in power, no matter what your situation is, we talked about this earlier, that, in Jesus' time, the Romans were in power.
Yeah.
They were overtaxing people. They had multitudes of money, multitudes of power, couldn't get enough. They wanted more. But it didn't stop the spread of Christianity.
Right.
And people were at their ends rope, I believe, at that period of time, and they were looking for a Savior. They thought it would be a Savior here on earth. They couldn't grasp the spiritual aspect of it.
Yeah.
But truthfully, in where you're concerned or where you're not concerned, it doesn't, the Bible says if your faith is in Him,
right,
these other things you don't have to really worry about.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't be concerned. I'm not saying we shouldn't do our duty as voting people of the public.
Right.
But in the end result, I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over which guy won because God's got a plan.
Yeah.
I have found out there's a plan. He's either going to let things go down the tube to make a point and make people change.
Yeah. Right.
Look at history. You had war. You had World War II. You had Vietnam War.
Right.
People turned back to church more than they ever did.
Yeah.
I think we're a victim of our own actions in most cases.
Absolutely.
Another thought comes to mind, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to hold the mic.
You're fine, man.
Another thought comes to mind as you was talking. You was talking about lifestyle. I remember as a kid, my dad was in World War II, and I was raised I was born in '58. As a child, the only vacation I ever remember taking was going to Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I was like 7, 8 years old. Mm-hmm. Now, we farmed, we milked cows, so you had to be at home at night and all that sort of thing. The point being, if you took an average poll of our congregation, how many people have at least been out of the state or most likely to Florida at least once in the last 12 to 16 months?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we think that's the norm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's not the norm if you're trying to pay yourself out of debt.
Yeah.
You see, and my dad was one of them. He owed for a farm.
Yeah.
And he owed money for crops and tractors, and we were going to milk cows and get out of debt.
Right.
And that was Dad's goal, and he did that.
Right.
So I don't think we have that dedication that we once had as individuals, as Christians, as the general public.
Yeah,
I think that could even go back to what Hardin was kind of saying towards the beginning about that fear aspect of like it's almost like we're being I don't know how it was back then, but it's like I feel like we're being told these days. Like we look on social media, we watch the news, they're like, you are screwed.
Yeah.
Like I think we have that feeling of like, hey, if you don't save this, if you don't do this, if you don't get lucky, you're not going to make
wait a
it.
minute.
Right.
Think about this just a second. Let's back away from that. You're real close to it, but if you back away and look at that, and say you're the news media, and you're telling people that, or you're the politician telling people that, what would be your reason for telling them they need to be scared? Because they can't help it right now, right?
Ratings?
Well, or is it like a lot of things that's happened in the past? We create the fear, so when we have to tax you more, you're like, heck yeah,
Just
I'm
do
in.
it. Just do it. Yeah, just do it.
Do what
yeah.
you got to
Just
do. I
what
don't
you
want to
gotta
change my
do.
lifestyle.
Right. And that could be a lot of
You got to
it.
prep people for what's coming,
Right. And,
so they're all on board.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about status quo and things like that. Like it's like you said, I think it's become the social norm these days, and people are in comparison and competition with each other so much and things like that, where we get a lot of this keeping up with the Joneses stuff. I feel like
I think
sometimes.
we got a generation. Well, last two generations probably that we have a sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
Because we're Americans.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that and I just like I said, I think a lot of it is one of those things where we talk about where the Bible says hey, do not covet your neighbor. I mean, don't be wanting your stuff. Don't be wanting the neighbor's stuff. You know what I'm saying? But it's like here we are. We see the Johnsons down the road, and they're in Key West for a week. And it's like I'm saving up. I'm going to Key West too. I don't care. I don't care if I can't make my car payment for 3 months. I'm going, and that's it. And before you know it, what's really happened? You've put yourself in debt. People go in debt to go on vacation.
Oh yeah, I'd say almost everybody that goes on vacation.
Right.
And
it's like it's not. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying like you can do whatever you want to with that. But I'm just saying that everything we do costs money. Right. Everything we do costs money, and if we don't prioritize, and if we don't put our money to put it to good use, that's what it boils down to. Go ahead, Art. What was you going to say?
This is abstract thought, but think about this. What would happen, or how would it change if everybody in a church, pick a church, it doesn't matter, the money that they spend on vacation this year, that they put on a credit card or however they finance it, as Nick said, say, I'm going to give that to the church. And then I'm going to take that time that I was going to go, and I'm going to dedicate that to do something for the church.
He's going to get super Christian-y on
whether
us.
it's Bible school or whether it's visit people. Everybody's got a talent,
Yeah.
Why would that change the face of what we're doing?
Well, that's a perfect world, and we don't live there, Hardin.
No, I'm just throwing something out there to make people go, huh.
I'm going to tell you, if every person in this place listened to this podcast this week, they would be mad at you come Sunday. They're going to look at you and they're going to say, "Listen,
you
buddy,
have to do
that's
that.
my vacation. You can't tell me what to do with it."
Who give you the strength to make the money? Who's going to give you the ability to pay that off? Coming from a guy who's been sitting on his butt for 4 weeks because I've had surgery.
Yeah.
So who gives you the power and the grace to get up and go to work every day to earn $1 to pay that off?
So where's the problem at then? Why don't we give back and trust in the process?
I'm going to quote something that I'm not going to say where I work, but I'm going to quote something that my supervisor put on the board one time, and it's because of the politics in my business, and it was kind of a joke.
Yeah.
But it is so true. He put on the board one morning when we walked in, "Welcome to blank, where you are the problem."
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that would be fitting in a lot of churches. Welcome to blank.
Welcome to fruition, where you are the problem.
Let's get rid of this welcome home banner and just put that one up.
Yeah, exactly. You are the problem. Yeah.
Welcome home. You are the problem.
I mean, you got to, and I don't mean that harshly. I'm just saying, kind of lightheartedly. If you really think about that, most of us, not all of us. I mean, Job was put in a situation he didn't deserve none of that. Because he's like, God, what did I do?
Right.
But he kept his faith.
Yeah.
He was used for an example.
Right.
But I think when we tend to look at things like, I deserve this, I should have this, and I'm not saying you don't.
Yeah.
But are we giving God his part?
Yeah.
And it's not all about money. Are we giving God our percentage, his percentage, 10% of our time and money is God's to start with.
Right.
Do we even give that?
Right. Oh, that's a good question.
You know, and I'm looking at me too. I mean, I can tell you honestly, over my lifetime, I haven't.
No.
But we should.
We should. Absolutely. We should. And that's what, so let me read this really quick and then we'll talk about this. But this is, I feel like, the most cliche tithing verse that all the preachers use across America. Malachi 3. We talk about this a lot. This is God speaking. He's asking a question. He says, "But you ask, how are we robbing you?" And God states, "In tithes and offerings. You are under a curse, your whole nation, because you are robbing me." It says, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. I will prevent pests from devouring your crops, and the vines in your fields will not drop their fruit before it is ripe, says the Lord Almighty. Then all the nations will call you blessed, for yours will be a delightful land, says the Lord Almighty." So God is speaking, and he says, you're robbing me in tithes and offerings. And because you're robbing me, you are under a curse, the whole nation, because you are robbing me.
America
or is under a
that
whole
pretty
curse.
much says it all.
Right, because you are robbing me. So, let's just say if we were to, if everybody in the church this Sunday, and to me it always starts small. I don't think it's going to be one of those things where every person in America is going to go give 10% to God this Sunday. But let's just say it starts right here at the church. We had 112 people here Sunday. So 112 people. I don't know how many were adults, but anyways, let's just say 112 people give 10%. You know what I'm saying? They're the top off of it, the 10%, and go from there. At that point in time, we've given God what is God's due, right? Tithe means tenth. So we've given God what is to God's, and now the other 90% of what we've accumulated that week goes into what we can, what we can do with that, bills, food, whatever. Now, you're laughing at me because I know what's going to happen, because people are going to be like, so you want me to give a tenth of what I made to an offering plate somewhere, and I'm struggling right now with what I can do, right?
That wasn't what I was laughing at.
Oh, okay. What was you laughing at?
Well, everybody struggles with the offering thing, and I don't want that to get out of context. The offering is only effective if it's given in the right manner.
I agree with that.
So how good is your offering if you give your 10% and you don't come to church and you go to the ball game instead?
Boom.
Well, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, that's a good question.
Because what he's talking about there of robbing him is not just about monetary.
Right.
It's about your reverence to God.
Well, it's a worship. It's a form of worship. We've
that's
said
what I'm
this.
trying to say.
Yeah.
And I think we miss that a lot of times. Now, to add just a little bit, I don't know why I'm talking so much. This is not my...
because this is fun, Hardin. This is what you do. We're having conversations.
But and you also got to look at here's another thought that comes to me is when you're dealing with that now.
I'm just glad Nick ain't talking all the time.
Well, I'm not sorry, Nick. When you're dealing with that now, if you take the tithing and your time, we have the misconception, and I blame. It's just the times. It's not the media. It's just the times that we live in with fast moving pace. We give our 10%, we're doing everything we need to do, we're good to go, right? All right. Because if you decide you want to get out of debt today, or you want to make things right today, something happened between you and your spouse, and I'm going to make it up to her, you realize that by saying I'm sorry today, don't fix it tomorrow.
Right.
So you are where you are today because of things you did last year, the year before, and the year before that.
Yeah.
So this is a process. You can't just do it once and be done.
Yeah.
The process
Yeah.
of you going to be where you are 10 years from now because of the steps that you've taken, not because of one little mistake.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes one mistake can do it, but as a general rule, it's a series of things. Are you dedicated to continually doing this over and over?
Right.
Just like preaching. You get up there, some days you feel like you knocked it out of the park and everybody came. Other days you're like, man, I guess they just missed it completely.
Right.
But you continue to do the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
Just like batters or race car drivers, they don't win every time they race.
Right.
got to make it a habit.
Exactly.
But you've got to do the same thing over and over to be effective in the long run. And I think that's what that's talking about, that we fail. We live in a microwave society, and we think everything should be immediate.
Yeah.
I'm going to straighten up my life. I'm going to do it. Well, preacher, I come to church for a whole 6 months and give my tithe, and nothing ain't no better than it was.
Yeah.
Now, that's probably a true statement.
Yeah.
Because it might take longer than that.
Right. I heard a guy say today that repetition brings revelation. And I thought of that, and as soon as you said, it's not just a one-time thing. It's a again and again and again and again. Like you have to make this repetitious. Like you have to, and like you said, it may be longer than 6 months. It may be a year. It may be a year and a half. But you're building habits towards something that is legitimately going to make your life better somewhere down the line. Don't know where, you know what I'm saying? We can't promise it'll be overnight, can't promise it'll be a week, a month, a year.
Yep.
But you're building habits to make something better. And honestly, right here, I think, and this is just my opinion, is like you said, it's not just, the monetary things of money and things like that, but it's just the investment of putting God first. And I mean, that is the ultimate commandment. Thou shalt not have any other gods before me.
Yeah, and I don't want to get hung up on the money thing, because in my experience, and I'm older than than you two for sure.
Together.
Yeah. So, that being said, I have learned, and I'm learning continuously, it might not be, 10% is kind of a standard that was thrown out there, and I believe the Bible to mean that.
Yes.
But that might not be what Nick's dealing with. He may be telling Nick, I need you to go preach. That's what I need you to do.
Right.
Are you willing to do that?
Yeah.
Sorry, Keenan.
The monetary part might not
He's
be
not,
his
He's not
thing.
speaking that to you.
I'm using you for an example. Just because you're sitting there picking on you. But everybody in the congregation has a talent and something they can do to contribute.
Yeah.
And if you pray about it, God's going to deal with you to do what you can do.
Right.
You may not can afford 10%. You may have a situation where you've got yourself in debt and you're trying to get out and you can't afford that.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to think that don't sweat that.
Yeah.
Do what you can do that God's calling you to do.
Right. So whenever, Nick, if somebody, how does doing what we're told to do by God help out $30 trillion? There's a tough question.
Right, big
Go ahead.
30 trillion.
Yeah.
And I think, again, the whole point of kind of bringing these news articles up in the past few episodes is to try and bring it all together to a point where we can say, hey, here's the positive out of all this.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And I think, we're looking at these things, I know a lot of people struggle with money. A lot of people are afraid of money. We think that we have to, I don't know. It's crazy to me, because I've been in that situation, and I think of, the times in the Bible, it talks, I've been with and I've been without, but God has still remained constant. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that has stayed true in my life, even over the last few years. I've been in situations where I've had more money than I've ever had before, and I've been in situations where I've had less money than I've had in years. I've been in situations where I've had a good job and situations where I'm jobless. And, at the same point in time, I remained faithful. I gave what I could. I gave my talents and skills as well. My time, I gave that as well. And I just kept pushing forward, and God just, He opened more doors. He opened, to new opportunities. My biggest thing when I saw this, these articles, and we're talking about this debt ceiling thing, and we've touched on it a couple different times. Is and I know that there may not be, or there may be people listening that are not necessarily a Christian, and so you're like, okay, what am I going to do here? You guys are talking about things that I don't know anything about. I don't know what tithing means. I don't know what it does, and I don't know the verses that go along with it. I don't know anything about it. Mm-hmm. And I do understand that too. And I just kind of want to just say that I fully believe and trust in and serve a God who provides when there's none and when there's plenty.
Right.
And I think it's just important for people to understand that, there are, you can be going through, financial hell. You could be going through physical, emotional, spiritual. You could be dealing with all kinds of different things. And at the end of the day, in the Bible, it says that God's not going to give us more than we can handle. Mm-hmm. And that could be physically, that could be financially, that could be emotionally, whatever it may be. God is going to take care of you in whatever situation, whatever storm comes your way. And if we are so worried and holding on for dear life to our money and our time and our value and our skills and our talents, then, God can't bless that because you're not being faithful with it.
Right.
And it's very important for us to give what we can give, whether that's time, whether that's money, whether that's your skills, talents, whatever it may be. It's important for us to give that. Just as in the Bible, it says that, those who prove faithful over little will be blessed with more. If we ever expect, things to get better, we have to, be faithful in the poorness and the debt ceiling and the, all these things that are going on. We can't, and I get the inclination as a nation to move towards the freaking out stage right now. We're like, things are already rough. A lot of us are living paycheck to paycheck. We've been in that situation. I've been in that situation. I feel that. I understand that. But again, God has proven to me time and time again that, again, no matter what my financial situation looks like, He still got me. And He may provide opportunities. He may provide people in your life that are going to take care of you that you didn't expect, just because you are faithful with what He asks of you to be faithful over. And, I think it's just important for us to know that, even though we may be in a financial hardship right now, it doesn't mean that we're not going to make it. And I think a lot of that is that hopelessness we have, like, I can't get ahead, I can't pay this debt off, I can't do this, I can't do that, what am I going to do? If things get worse, I'm going to just end it all. I think there's a lot of people right now that are on that edge, that precipice of, if things get worse, I might as well end it all.
Right.
And I really do truly believe that, there are a lot of people right now dealing with that. They're in this situation where the money and the debt and everything is just weighing so hard on them, they don't know how to provide for themselves or their family. They're not where they want to be. They're not where their wife wants them to be or their husband wants them to be. They're not in what they would consider an ideal situation.
Here's a good question, Hardin. Why do you think people struggle so much with trusting God with their money? You look at, like, I don't think people are hesitant to go to God and say, heal me. They trust God with they'll go, God, heal me. God, work in my marriage. God, take care of my kids. And then it's like, okay, well, and then it's like, well, God bless my finances. Okay, but then what if, and then God says, well, let me control your finances.
There's a lot of avenues to that
question. Well, let's take an avenue.
But the first avenue you got to look at, and Jesus used a lot of parables when He was teaching.
Yeah.
And I love parables.
Yeah.
But it was easier to do with parables at that point in time because you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that if you plant a crop of corn, it's got to rain, it's got to sprout, it's got to come up, and it's got to produce.
Yeah.
That is your income, that's your living, that's your food.
Right.
So it's easier to depend on God for that because you have no control over it.
Yeah, yeah.
So control, I think, is an illusion.
Yeah.
We as human beings like to think that we control ourselves. We like to think that we control what we do. We like to think that we control when we get out of bed. Well, you can't control when the sun comes up and goes down.
Right.
You can't control if it rains. You can't control if there's a hurricane. You can't control if there's a tornado.
Yeah.
But we tend, that's a minority. We can't control that.
Right.
But we do have the ability with the technology and science we got to give people early warnings, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So we tend to rely on that more because we can touch it, we can see it, we can feel it. It don't require faith.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I'm going to do a disclaimer on this. This is just from one man's opinion.
Yeah.
But I think we have a problem with trusting God. It's more evident where money's concerned, but I think we just have a big trust problem, period.
Just a faith problem?
Which shows up monetarily because that's where I was going with that story.
Yeah.
Monetarily, everybody has a job that they go to.
Yeah.
And this is another thing, talking about tithing. In the old days, you gave 10% to the church. The church took care of the widows, the orphans, blah,
absolutely.
blah, blah.
Right, yeah.
Well, we got taxes that pay for welfare and stuff now.
Yeah.
I don't know how to calculate all that. I really don't.
Right.
But that being said, that kind of takes it. We don't really have to depend on God because they don't apply now.
Right, yeah.
So we kind of kick that to the side.
Yeah.
Then when you talk, that's the monetary side. But I don't think we trust and have faith that we have. I'm going to toss one at you. I just recently had hip surgery.
Yeah.
Okay. I got faith that God could heal me. God has the ability to say, you're healed. You're done.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, why didn't do it? Why did I have to rely on a surgeon? Is it my lack of faith? Do I have more faith in the surgeon?
Right.
Should I have just spent 25 hours in prayer and God could have healed me?
Right.
He's got the ability.
Yeah.
He's got the power.
Right.
So was it my lack of faith or God wanted me to go talk to somebody while I was in the hospital?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But if I had to answer these questions, I wouldn't need to be sitting here. I'd be somewhere teaching something.
I would be listening
Billy
to
Graham
you
Hardin.
I'd be listening to you I'd be saying, Hardin, you need to do a podcast.
You see
so
where
I
I'm
can
going with
listen.
this? The faith and the what we really believe, we can say, yeah, I believe.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, do you have? Think about the 3 Hebrew children. They had the faith, even when they're being thrown in the furnace.
Yeah.
That God's going to take me. Do we have that kind of faith?
No.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
So that being said, we
Yeah.
pretty much agree on that.
Yeah.
I think money's the easiest place to pick on people. Don't trust God with their money.
Right.
I don't think we trust God. period, because, and this is just my opinion, we are raised in a society of mistrust of everything. We don't trust the government.
Yeah.
We don't. And
we don't trust people.
Well, why do we not trust people, though? Look at I was a kid in the 50s, okay?
Yeah.
Look at where we've come from with technology, TV. Everything you watch, if you click through a channel or you multimedia, somebody is messing over somebody else, taking their money, some kind of scam.
Yeah.
We just don't trust, period.
Right.
We are taught not to, or you're a fool.
Yeah, right.
So, and that's why when you walk in these church doors, you're like, turn everything over to God, and you're like, are you stupid? I think that's kind of the general, and it's so, as long as I've been doing this, it's difficult for me, so I can't fathom somebody that wasn't raised in church or believe in God, how hard it can be. It's got to be, I think they got to go through a traumatic transformation to really say, I trust and I believe.
Yeah, right. We've talked about that before, about, like we're, if I'm an average American or average human being in the world right now looking around, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how, if I didn't have my hope and faith in Christ Jesus, what would I be doing right now?
And you realize those people think we're idiots.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, guaranteed.
Because I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
Right. Yeah, and that's why, I've said that about people in general, too, that, like, some people, it does take a traumatic experience for them to change their life and to gravitate into a different direction. Sometimes it takes that near-death experience, or it takes losing somebody, or it takes a financial setback that's going to bury them, or whatever, to really understand that there's something out there deeper, a deeper meaning into all of this.
But to answer your question real short, is you look at a checkbook, you look at your income, you look at it logically, you can say, I make this much, this is how much I got to spend, this, and this. I'm either over budget or I'm not.
Yeah.
Now, that's easy. We rely, because we're reliant on ourselves, and we are taught, our society has done a good job of feeding us a bill of goods. That's what you need to do, is rely on you.
Right.
And that goes back to, Keenan told me this, and it stuck with me for a while. But
Gosh,
I know, right?
You're going to give me some credit. Yeah,
I'm
right.
Give you a little bit of credit. But that if you have to put pen to paper, then it doesn't take faith, or then you're not using faith. I guess would be the best way to say it. Like, if you have to, if you have to sit down and write it out and make it make sense, then it doesn't take faith.
Well, and let's take that one step further. But that goes. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But you got to kind of, how do I want to say this?
You got to be a wise steward of.
Well, no, that's not what I'm trying to say.
Shut up.
It has to be given from God. For example, Keenan or me can stand up on Sunday and say, you need to give 10% God. And the person that really listens, that's really trying, okay, they give 10%.
Yeah.
Because I said so.
Yeah.
No, that's not the right answer. You give 10% because that's what God's telling you to do.
Right.
Or you give up.
Or 20%.
Whatever God tells you to do.
$2,000.
I remember a story one time, Karen's dad, of course, he was the preacher. And I remember one time we got I rode to church with him. Me and Karen were dating, I believe, if I remember right. And he looked at his wife, and he said, her name was Claudia. He said, write a check for, I believe it was $1,000.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what prompted him to do that.
Yeah.
But he just said God told him to.
Yeah.
Now, that's the secret. Are we all tuned in enough to listen to God and say, okay.
How many people would be God's like, hey, give 1,000. They're like, what?
Did I hear you right? Yeah, exactly.
He didn't listen to a podcast. He didn't listen to a preacher. He just like, God told him to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Less distractions, too. I really do believe. I think we're so heavily distracted these days that it's hard for us to focus. You talk, I think, you've talked before about, like, the dangers. Well, while using, like, the Bible app on your phone is highly convenient, it is also dangerous because you're so distracting.
Yes.
You're sitting there, trying to read the Bible on your phone, and then you get a text message, and you get a Facebook alert, then you get this, and next thing you know, you're scrolling through eBay.
Yeah,
you're like, what's going on?
Absolutely.
And I think we do become very easily distracted. As far as listening to God, we have to make that conscious effort to get alone in the prayer closet, get alone in the dark with God. Nothing but you and Him talking. Or if you're in the shower, or anything like that. If you're in the car, turn your radio off. Just having those more intimate one-on-one conversations with God is just very important because how else are we going to recognize His voice when He speaks to us when it's loud?
Yeah. And my point was, give if that's what God tells you to give.
Right.
But don't just give a bunch to the church because I don't think you can go wrong. I don't think you can outgive God, but if you give in the wrong spirit, I don't think you'll see anything from it.
Right, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think it goes back to kind of what you were saying, Hardin, with just the entitlement of what we have today in this moment in time. Like, you tell that story about your father-in-law, And, it was like there was no second guessing. There was no this. There was no that. It was, this is what we're doing. That's it. That's it. Bottom line, that's what we're doing. There was no second guessing or anything like that. And it's like, today in these moments and times, I feel like that the simplicity of life is just not there anymore. It's like we have everything, we have everything coming out of our checks. We have apps now, and I don't know if you know this or not, Hardin, but we have apps now that we can borrow from our check before we ever get our check in order to pay
I'm fully
something.
Aware of that, but I think it's stupid.
You're right. And so it's like you can literally spend your check before you get your check. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that is the world that we live in these days, where it's like, people back then, I just feel like it was more like you work for what you had. It was sweat down your brow. It was, you punch that time clock. You work hard for what you got. You come home and you were proud of what you had, and when God said to give it, you gave it because you trusted that God would give you more, and at this point in time, let's just call it as it is. We live in such a godless society anymore, where, like you said, we've put our trust and hope in everything else but Him in the process, because every answer comes from everywhere else but Him most of the time.
And I was fixing to say that the scenario, that trust in God didn't come overnight, because there's a whole story behind him when God was calling him to preach, and I forget the number of years he talked about running from preaching.
Yeah,
and it would be a long story. Bottom line is he went through a lot of turmoil trying to avoid being a preacher.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And then when it come to happen, faith was there.
Absolutely. And that's where, I think that we have to get back to, because, and I like the balance that we have in our church, but I think that's why I call them seasoned Christians, the salt and pepper Christians. Hardin got his salt and pepper on tonight. But the seasoned Christians, where it's like that you can kind of pour into the younger generation and just say, hey, look, like I've been there. It's going to be okay. I've been there.
And they look at me like, it's got you where?
Yeah. It's got you looking like you're frazzled right now, and you tell me it's going to be okay. Yeah. But that's where I think that generation that's seen so much. You've lived through it. You've lived through the wars. You've lived through the ups and downs. You've seen stuff. You've been there and known that time and time again you wake up and the day is new. The Bible says that His grace, His mercies are new. They're fresh every single morning. And so no matter if we're bombing people overseas, or no matter if there's famine in the land, or if we're 30 trillion in debt, like we've said time and time again, He doesn't change. And so, it's our faith or commitment to Him that's really wavered in the process, whenever it comes down to it.
Well, I guess one thing that's helped me too is when we sang a lot, that we didn't have no kind of we cut an album, which we financed ourselves, but we didn't have producers and we call people that maybe bookings for you and stuff like that.
Managers.
We didn't have managers. People called us word of mouth.
Yeah.
And you drive to Tennessee. You put gas in your van. You've got all the equipment. You set up. You put your time and effort in. And there was times when we went to church that they didn't have no money.
Yeah.
But we weren't there for the money.
Right.
But through faith we did that. And the one thing that I can honestly say, I don't believe I ever done any call it a performance or singing, whatever we did. We did a lot of evangelistic type music that God didn't move.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And so that is a reward in itself.
Yeah.
But we always got enough money to put gas back in the van and get home. Yeah,
that's it. And that's what, like, just a testament to, something I said Sunday. I told a story at the end of service that, it was one Sunday that a church had called me to come preach that Sunday night, and I was about 35, 40 minutes away from them. We had 52 cents in the bank. And they had called and said, "You want to come preach that night?" And I was like, "Sure," And so I said we was looking in drawers, turning over couch cushions, trying to find change just to go get some gas to put in the vehicle to go. And found enough to put some gas in to go, and got over there that night, preached, and the preacher just said, "Listen, like God laid you on our hearts to come here tonight," and had literally took up a love offering for us, and never didn't know anything. Like they didn't. Nobody knew anything. It was just the fact of that we trusted God enough to get to that process, and God rewarded the trust and the faith and the obedience. And that's what I think we're really trying to sit here tonight and wrap it up to say that, that if we trust and have faith, and we're obedient to what he says. Regardless if he says give $1 or give 1,000. $1 to some people might be 1,000,
right.
and 1,000 to some people might just be $1. But that's the thing about it. If we're trust and we have faith and we're obedient to what he says give, we're not going to go without, regardless of what that is. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen? What do you think, Nick?
I mean, Bob Marley may not have been an evangelist, but
don't worry.
That singing fish on the
Don't
wall.
worry.
Yeah, don't
Be
worry.
happy.
Be happy.
Yeah.
Everything will be all right. Just. There's a lot, that comes down to it. And like I said, I've seen and I've felt this fear that a lot of people have had, and this, and we've talked a lot about, people who are sitting on their talents, sitting on their gifts, sitting on their finances, all these sorts of things, because they're afraid of what happens when they step out in faith.
Absolutely.
And, I think this is us three, just sitting here shooting the breeze tonight, trying to encourage you to stop sitting on it.
Yeah.
And get up, trust God with it, take that literal, it's why it's called a leap of faith. I think I read it in a book the other day. It said it's not called a leap of fear for a reason. It's a leap of faith.
Yeah.
We're not talking about being fearful. You take a leap of faith for a reason.
Right.
Take that leap of faith. If you're struggling, if you're holding on to something, again, whether it's your talents, your skills, your finances, whatever it may be, and you're scared of losing something, you're scared of not having enough, you're scared of, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough this to volunteer, to give, whatever it is that you're afraid of right now. I really truly believe that if you step out in faith, God will bless you for doing that.
Absolutely.
God will bless your obedience in that situation. And we talked about, I think back to the Christmas service we had that, Logan was talking about that heavenly obedience, how if people hadn't listened to God, the whole, story of Christ wouldn't have happened. If people weren't listening to angels, listening to God, being obedient, we think about the whole religion that wouldn't have happened if we weren't obedient.
Right.
In that sense, God would have made where to happen. But, just that mindset that we need to have of, it doesn't matter what the world looks like. It doesn't matter what the news is saying. It doesn't matter what the politicians are saying. If God says you're going to be all right, you're going to be all right.
Amen. Yeah. Go ahead, Hardin. What do you think, man? Any closing thoughts?
Just not really related to what Nick was talking about, but just a thought occurred to me. He was talking about the deficit and all that. I find it interesting. The people who are most worried about it is the people who've got the most money already.
Yeah.
So I guess I ain't got a lot to worry about.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. So we hope you've enjoyed tonight's broadcast and episode. And again, thank you to Hardin for being on with us. I told him he might be auditioning for a full-time job. You never know. It'd be a lot easier just to have him on every Tuesday with us. So, but anyways, we hope you've enjoyed it. As always, tell your friends, tell your family about it. Hit that download button, and we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Be blessed until we see you again.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go.
Thank you to everyone for listening to the People Suck But Love 'Em Anyways podcast. As always, you can check us out on Facebook at For Wishing Church, YouTube at For Wishing Church of Hodgenville, and check out our website at www.forwishingchurchky.org. Remember, don't suck and love people.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go.